I know, but that was two down.
I'll hang up on him then. David is out.
Okay. Not since I've been here. And she makes, welcome back. Evening.
You know how to make an entrance.
Sorry. Calls order?
No? I seen you driving up.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry that I'm a little late. Let's go ahead and get the meeting called to order. Mr. Neri, any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is one announcement. Commissioner Gershner will not be with us this evening. He has a client that can only be seen at 6 p.m. He sends his apologies.
Okay. If there isn't anything else, we'll move on to the approval of the July minutes. You all have copies of those minutes. Are there any additions or corrections?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as submitted. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, yes?
Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. At this time, we'll open, I'm sorry. Missed no public comment. Non-agenda items on it. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Being no old business, we'll move right on to new business. Mr. Neri, first
Thank you,
item.
Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda is a variance request. Request for variance of Section 14-112-2 fence requirements. The applicants are Wallace and Tracy Caldwell of 24 Cattail Cove. All of you now should be well familiar with this case. Some of us have actually been over to the Caldwells to take a look personally. Basically, what this section of code says is that in residential areas, you can't have more than a 6-foot-high privacy fence. We've been through their dilemma before. As you recall, their neighbor's property directly behind them slopes downward. On the Caldwell side, from their grade, the fence is approximately 4 foot 11 inches. That fence then travels down another 13 inches to touch their neighbor's grade. On their neighbor's side, it's a 6-foot fence. The Caldwells have a pool to buffer that area. Between the two homes, they actually had some tall red plants growing at one time, which unfortunately died. They then put what's called a topper on their fence, which is approximately 2 foot 7 inches tall. They did not get a permit to do this. They say this is the first time they've ever built anything in Maumelle like this, didn't know they needed a permit. It was discovered by one of our code enforcement officers. They then came to City Hall to apply for a permit. It was denied. On their side, at 4 feet 11 inches with a 2 foot 7 inch topper, that then makes that total fence structure 7 foot 6 inches or 1 foot 6 inches out of compliance. They are asking for a variance from this section of code. In your packets, you have email from Jim Morley on this matter. You also have an email from their neighbors directly behind them in regard to this, and a write-up by the Caldwells themselves and many, many pictures. They are here in the audience this evening if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Applicants would like to come forward and address the council? If you will, please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Wallace Caldwell, 24 Cattail Cove, Maumelle, and my wife Tracy back here. So we didn't know, or we should have known about the code, but we didn't, and we built the fence anyway. I think that it would enhance the property and give my neighbor behind me more privacy along with us. But I have gone out and measured, and Jim's told you good about what's going on here. That 4'11", we would entertain talking about taking some of the boards down to get it in code to 6 feet, if that could work on our side of the fence.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant?
With the difference in the grade variance, that means part of your fence is actually kind of working as a retaining wall for the dirt, right?
It is there, yes, that's true. I mean,
And
it's
that
still
probably-
sturdy, and
Yeah, that probably occurred when the pool was put in.
yeah,
'Cause
there
it
was.
looks like they built up
the
the
dirt
area
up, yeah.
there so that the surface area outside the pool, the concrete apron, would have a flat surface to fit on. And it appears from your side that the land kind of goes from east to west to at grade, up a period, and then back down on the other side to the east.
Yes,
Now, on the other side, it's pretty much a standard grade all the way across. What are you going to do when the fence rots out?
that's true. It's old. It's been there for a while.
The reason why I ask that question is if you have a retaining wall and you put your fence on top of that retaining wall, the height of that retaining wall doesn't count in the 6 foot of the height of your fence.
So that's what they did in.
If you had a retaining wall that was 2.5 feet across the back of your property level, and you had your 6 foot fence on top of it, you would be at your almost 8.5 feet. Okay, you can also put a fence inside a fence, and it can be non-compliant as long as it's not over 6 foot tall. So instead of putting a topper there, you could actually come inside, put a second 6 foot fence. Of course, it would be probably less than what you've got. The other option would be vegetation again. You can do that.
Right.
And you can even have, something you call a trellis. We have no standards for the height of a trellis. If you're looking for privacy, vegetation might be another alternative. But at some point, because I've experienced this, that retaining wall is the dirt behind the fence is going to eventually rot your fence, and it will wash out.
That's true. That's true. Okay, thank you. And does anybody?
Well, you did say that you would be willing to bring the existing fence that's there now with the topper on it down to code to the 6 foot.
Yes, and I've measured it. Jim's measured it. We would, be willing to do that if that would be okay with the commission.
Commissioners, any other questions?
What's the height? What's the height of the fence on that you're measuring, Jim? The bottom photo to the left.
With their fence only,
Yes, sir. Including the including the
including the
appurtenance.
topper?
Yes, sir.
7 feet 6 inches.
How tall is the fence down here?
Without the topper? 4 feet 11 inches,
It is all the way down?
all the way down.
And the other side is 6 foot.
Correct.
I measured it. There would be 2 boards, not 5 boards, or 3 boards, not 5 boards, if we brought it down to that.
John, you read that section of code. Maybe our trusty counselor here can help out. In my subdivision, and I did research it at the time, and I'm trying to recall corner of Lake Valley Drive and the Summit Valley. He built a big retaining wall, like 8 or 9 feet. It may not be that big, 7 feet, and then he put the fence on top.
Yeah, I saw
And
that.
my neighbor called me, and then when I did the research, and that didn't dawn on me until John's discussion, that was compliant. And I think I even talked with Mr. Morley about that at the time. So you could gain additional height if you brought up that retaining wall and got that fence out of the dirt, if you so elected. Because eventually it's going to rot.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Any other questions, commissioners?
If you elect to do a retaining wall, that does also require a permit.
All right, thank you, sir.
David Haas, 128 South Shore Drive. The only thing I might just recommend, just me as if I were looking at landscaping, is you can get that trellis really pretty cheap, and I think you can put it inside the fence there, and make it your 6 foot high, and stain it, and it would look a lot prettier. It would make it within code. I don't think that's going to cost you as much money. I think you'll be happier with your look than what you have there, even if you stained it. But I was just going to throw that idea out for you.
And if you do build a trellis, it can't be attached to the fence. It has to be freestanding.
My neighbor
Okay.
actually has trellis too. If he's you can come over to where I live, and I can show him where it looks good.
Any other questions or discussion? Commissioners? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion for a do-pass recommendation for the request for variance, section 14.
Excuse me, Commissioner Todd, this stays with the commission.
Okay, excuse me, that we grant a variance, section 14-112 fence requirement.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, yes. Opposed, same sign?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's a no.
That's, well,
No.
it doesn't pass. We didn't grant the variance for you. And that's because of, it's tough in these situations, when you pick and choose, and this has come up before, and we just have to be consistent along those lines. So, and I think you heard some options that you can pursue at this point.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
Fences are different than normal variances, aren't they, Mr. City Attorney? The appeal process is not the circuit court, it's city
Yes, as a
council.
matter of fact, excuse me, Mr. City Attorney, this is appealable to the city council, and if a ruling that didn't please the applicant at the city council level transpired, it's appealable to circuit court.
There's a note in the applicant's letter, number 8, that makes references to other fences in our area, and we would welcome the opportunity to pay them a visit if you want to tell us where they are, or if it's gotten by our code compliance folks. So one of those may be the ones I'm referenced in my subdivision, actually. So,
Mr. Chairman, if you please.
Yes, sir.
To the Caldwells, first of all, thank you all for being nice enough to have us over in your yard, which is beautiful, by the way, and to be able to view what was going on. Secondly, you've heard some options that you do have. Please, before you do anything or act on any of those, give Mr. Jim Morley a call in our permitting department to see what, if any, kind of permit that you would need for whatever you decide to do.
And the next city council meeting is,
September 5th.
5th of September.
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
Yeah,
At the bottom of your agenda.
after Labor Day.
5th of September. If y'all did want to appeal that, if you could give something in writing to the city clerk by the 30th of August, that'd be next Wednesday. And then they'll get you on the agenda.
Okay, you're welcome to stay, or yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't need our permission. Thank you all for coming. Mr. Neri, next item on the agenda.
The next items, as a matter of fact, the next two, items 2 and 3, go somewhat together. It's a revised preliminary plat for the Natural Trail Estates. White Oak Equestrian Center is the applicant, of course. That's Dr. and Mrs. David Haas. The applicant has decided they would like to make this development private, which is really about the only change, even though it's a major one. It's a change that staff did not feel comfortable making at a staff level, hence it's before you. Plus, the development plan moves on to the city council, which was another big reason. Your plat note number 4 has been strengthened on the advice of Mr. City Attorney. If you would turn to that, please, on the plat of the development plan. It now says, all road, sidewalk, and drainage improvements along Timberland Trail and all open space tracts shall be owned and maintained by the Property Owners Association. Along with this, you have an email from late in the week from John Payne, somewhat blessing what they've done so far as what the fire department wanted done. And the applicant is in the audience. If you have any further questions, this stays with the commission, the plat.
Thank you. That's number 2. Okay, thank you, Mr. Neri. Any questions, commissioners of staff? Dr. Haas, do you care to address?
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think when we got to starting the subdivision and sharing around with people and our plans, it seems like really probably over 95% of people want it gated and concerned about safety, and there's a big concern more about safety of their kids. And then, the cul-de-sac, when we applied, that's one of the reasons we wanted the cul-de-sac for the safety for kids and going through. And then, I talked to, tried to find out whether that's a reality on theft and things like that, but I did talk to Sam Williams, our police chief, and he says, that's one of the biggest things people driving through. It's easy to drive through their cars and they jump in and can break in a car and do what they can. But and a lot of the women don't know that, but it seems like everybody that I talked to, they said, we really would be interested if it's gated. And even builders that I had, they said, we really prefer, if we're going to come over here, to have it gated. And all my people that are interested in buying lots, it's going to be a little. So that's kind of what led to the change with me from my standpoint. So if you have any questions about that, but I think the safety is a big thing. Of course, and then the big thing we had was the POA. I talked to Vice Chair Todd there about that, that we make sure the POA is stated in there that they will have dues and maintain the road in the future, because you've had some future problems with people with POAs or in private subdivisions not taking care of the roads. I got a great road bed out there. If you want to drive over it now, the shell's already in place and everything, so it's hard as a brick. So I'm gonna have a really good road bed and foundation. But I think just the demand of what people want, and I don't think I can change that. And I'd like to have a successful project. And my wife can speak for herself, and she certainly wants it gated and feels safe, and having grandkids around and things like that. So,
thank you, Dr. Haas. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, John?
Yeah, I just want to kind of get it on the record that the streets and all the improvements are going to be built to city standards, but maintained by the POA. Is that what I'm understanding?
yeah, that's correct.
And as far as compliance with the fire chief's recommendations, as far as the placement of the fire plugs, access to the gate in emergency situations, you're all pretty much in agreement with everything?
Yeah, we'll comply with what they need. I talked to both of them. A lot of times they can do all this by electronically from their cars, and the police cars, as well as the fire trucks now too. So.
And also the bill of assurance, you're going to have to redo that, and it probably needs to be pretty much finished before the development plan goes to the city council, because there will have to be some changes in that. Even though the city doesn't actually participate in it, as a guy that has a lot of experience with a bill of assurance that was written in a hurry, I would say it that way, and the residents in a gated private subdivision buy a house and they don't realize that the city's not maintaining the streets, curbs, and gutters. I've answered the telephone call and kind of upset some people over a period of time because of information that I knew that they wasn't aware of when they bought their property second and third hand.
I would add that Dr. Haas is having a land use attorney prepare this bill of assurance and has been working on it for some time.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I have one request. I have one more thing I'll talk about the preliminary development plan, but I'd like for the engineer on the inset, Mark, if you would, or tell Eric on that entrance gate, let's carry those leaders regarding private maintenance begins, city Maumelle property, anything that needs to be denoted, and carry that to the inset as well too, so we can see that at the better scale. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments of staff and our applicant? Thank you, Dr. Haas. All right. If there is no further discussion, I would entertain a motion, and this would be on the revised preliminary plat first.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we pass the revised preliminary plat for Natural Trail Estates, subject to all commission and staff and the statements that were made here tonight.
Second.
Conditional use.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor, yes.
Yes.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next item is the revised preliminary development plan. Mr. Neri.
Staff will recommend for a due pass recommendation to the Maumelle City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. Are there any questions of staff, of the commissioners?
I'd just like to pass along something to Mr. Neri. I was talking with the applicant prior to the meeting and just kind of gave him some personal sentiments regarding the location of the gate and access to track 1, which is zoned commercial as compared to the residential. And he has my blessing, I don't know about the rest of the commissioners per se, or even amendments necessary, that moving this gate around to be able to provide access to that track is definitely a staff level decision as far as I'm concerned on how he wants to access track 1. The concern I had is the way that where the gate is currently located on tract 1, if we had he sold the property and had a permitted use, is as a driveway could be accessed in behind the gate. They may or may not prefer that. So I just don't want him as the owner getting caught there in a little catch-22. If somebody buys that property, has permitted use, and wants a driveway, I don't see how we couldn't approve it if they wanted it at that location. So if that gate needs to wiggle around, it's staff level as far as I'm concerned to be able to address the applicant's issue there. He may not like to move it at all. That's his choice.
Gotcha. Any other comments or questions, discussion? If there are none, I would entertain a motion on the revised preliminary development plan.
Motion for due pass recommendation to City Council for the revised preliminary development plan for Natural Trail Estates for the White Oak Equestrian Center as applicant, pending the commissioner staff comments and any other commissioner staff comments.
Motion.
Second, well, okay. Friendly amendment that all the conditions on the development plan are met.
So move. That's amenable.
You accept that?
Yes. That's fine.
All right, and the second, who seconded it? Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion on that? If there are none, those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, thank y'all.
When will this be on the council agenda? Will it be on the 5th?
Excuse me, I think that's going to be on Tuesday because of Labor Day, correct?
Right.
That'll be the 5th.
The 5th.
Yep. Okay, at this time, we will close the public hearing portion of the meeting, go right into City Council Liaison Report, August 7th. Commissioner Todd.
I was there. And actually, we had a couple of items that came through the Planning Commission. First reading of Ordinance 940, the Master Street Plan Amendment. That was the cut on Maumelle Boulevard at Pine Forest Drive. And approving a conditional use permit that came through for us through the, for Faith Church, and a second conditional use permit for Kids College at pre-K at the same location. And that was all that was on the planning commission.
All right, thank you, sir. August 21st, Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, sir, pretty light for us. There's only really 2 items on the agenda. I'll read those. Is that the smoking ordinance for the Maumelle Center on the lake passed. That included e-cigs as well, too. And I had second reading on the franchise agreement with Comcast, which is majority of the thickest part of the packet. They formed an audit committee at the request of a councilman.
Okay. The liaison for September on the 5th is Commissioner Green. On the 18th is Commissioner Andrews. Is there anything else that we need to discuss this evening?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I have a motion to
Second.
adjourn and a second. All in favor, yes?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
You can stay.
I heard everybody say yes.
Are you billing by the hour?
So tell me, man, this,
I don't think so. You're so. Janelle wasn't, though. I think she's billing by the hour.